Yo, what's up chat? We're back with another video today. I'm going to be talking about building a big chest. This is probably going to be a short video. Pretty easy video to understand right here. So first up we have my diagram of a chest. So here we have the upper head of the chest and the rest, which is the mid and lower, which is sometimes described as two separate heads, the middle and the lower, but they are essentially the same head. So before we get into that, I just need to show the credibility right here. Picture of Arnold and then picture of this guy on Instagram who both have very large chests. Since they're in this paint presentation, it must mean it's a reliable presentation. That's just how it works. Don't hate the player, hate the game, you know what I'm saying? So here we have a proper diagram. So we see here is the deltoid. You can see the front and then this head of the delt and that head of the delt. And then the upper chest, which is separate to the rest of the chest, which is the clavicular head. Of course, had to put a picture of clavicular here, make him stretched for funny. The rest of the chest, which is the sternocostal head, which is more like this. They're both pectoralis major, so it's the same muscle, two different heads. Now, if you look at the direction of the fibers, the one in the middle is straight across, right? They go to that. But the ones at the bottom are almost vertical, and the ones at the top start to get vertical as well. The chest, pec major, almost has 180 degrees of changing muscle fiber direction. And the muscle fiber direction is important because this dictates the function of your chest. So the upper chest is primarily used in horizontal adduction. Got the diagram right here. Bring your arm across the body. And shoulder flexion, bringing your arm up. See, this guy's bringing his arm up. If we look at this diagram again, we can see the fibers going this way. So in order to shorten them, you'd have to bring your arm up and across a little bit. Then we have the mid/lower, which is the same thing. Horizontal adduction, bringing your arm across, and shoulder extension, which is actually opposite, bringing it down. You can see here, arms up, you bring it down. If we go back to the diagram again, you can see here, most of the fibers here are actually going across. So when you are doing horizontal abduction, it'll be mostly the sternal head of the chest. But these fibers are more downwards. Also, having your arm come down would also train the sternal head of the chest. This brings us to exercises. What can you actually do to achieve these movement patterns? You've got flies and presses. Those are the two ways to target the chest. So we'll look at the incline and flat presses first. Now I've got these guys doing barbell here. You can do barbell, dumbbell, or even machine. I'll explain why you would want to do each of those and what the benefits of each of them are. But first, let me tell you about bench angle. Now, there have been many studies about this. A flat bench angle uses less chest. And eventually, the more inclined it gets, the more upper chest it gets, up to about 60 degrees. And once you get to 60 degrees, the amount of upper chest reduces and the amount of front delt increases. That's how it works for the upper chest. So I'll draw it more like this. So if you start like this, the closer it is to green, the more upper chest activation you'll get. This isn't 100% accurate because going straight up, you will still get upper chest activation, but probably get more upper chest activation doing a shoulder press than doing a decline press. But this is just like a very oversimplified diagram about how upper chest activation works from bench incline. And if you think about it, the upper chest also functions for shoulder flexion. So tucking your elbow will increase the amount of shoulder flexion rather than horizontal abduction, which will increase the use of the upper chest. And then over here we have flies, which is the same thing, but it removes your shoulders and arms a lot more than using a bench press, because a bench press is a compound movement because you're using your triceps and your shoulders, but a fly is much closer to an isolation. Even though technically you still have all these joints involved in it, can stabilize enough to keep your arms relatively stiff, you will be isolating mostly chest. The same thing here, the bench angle. The higher the bench angle, the more it'll increase your upper chest activation. And back to pressing, a barbell bench is very popular as just a gym bro staple exercise. Reasons you might want to do it is because you like the exercise or you like powerlifting. Barbells are more stable than dumbbells. As you can see here, this guy's doing barbell, and they are easier to overload. But if you go into dumbbells, even though they are less stable, you have more bilateral control of each arms. They're less stable, but you can do each side separately, and you can get more mobility and range doing it. And machines will be the most stable. They're usually unilateral, so both hands together moves one weight instead of two separate weights. The machines will be more stable. You will probably be able to build more muscle with machines. A lot of people, including myself, like doing free weights, so there's nothing wrong with doing a free weight option. If you do a free weight option or a machine option, you can still build the same amount of muscle. And then let's talk about techniques. Obviously, stability, what I just said, machines, cables, or free weights. Machines are the most stable. Cables are also pretty stable, depending which exercise. Free weights are the least stable, but I really like them a lot. There's nothing wrong with doing them. And tucked rib cage. If you do a lot of bench pressing or incline bench and you notice when it gets difficult, you're more likely to arch to get the weight up, or even if you're doing a machine. And what this does is include other muscles when you're pressing. If your priority is to build your chest, focusing on reducing your rib cage flare, like flexing your abs to keep your rib cage down while you're pressing, will isolate your chest more. This is like slightly irrelevant, this image, but basically the less arch, like if you keep your spine neutral and tuck your rib cage, you'll activate your chest more. That's all I have for this video today. See you in the next one.